Hey everyone, I'm Rabbi Tzvi Waxman.
And I'm Rabbi Shalom Rodin.
We're here at the Hanging at the Hub podcast, which we created to be a place where it's real talk, people and rabbis, where we discuss all kinds of everyday topics and find the Jewish perspective on it.
Everyone has a story, whether you're famous or not, and we try to bring that out to everyone.
So with all our interviewees, hopefully you can learn something, we can learn something, and should be fun.
All the best.
Hey everyone, welcome back to a new episode of Hanging at the Hub, Real Talk, People and Rabbis. We're joined here by none other than Basil Haymann and my colleague Rabbi Shalom Rodin. And
How are you, everybody?
Basil Haymann, for those in the Dallas community, probably know him. For those listening around the United States, you'll get to know him. And the idea is we want to really hear Basil's story and his involvement as a philanthropist and in the Jewish community, and we, as we were talking before we started, like what you became successful in like what overnight? How did it work? It was so easy. We said, yeah,
it's easy. It started at the age of 18, and subsequently the last 53 years have been a lot of hard work.
Right.
Nothing happens by itself. That I can assure you. The harder you work, the luckier you get.
Okay, so Basil, let's start from the beginning. Just a little background. Obviously, you're not originally from Dallas. Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from South Africa, and I left there at the age of 32. That was over 40 years ago, and moved to Dallas, Texas, not knowing a single solitary soul, and the rest is history. It's been a wonderful time in the United States.
Wow. So 32, and you met your wife, and you were married, correct?
I met my wife when she was 12 years old. At our shul functions one Shabbat, I happened to bump into this gorgeous young blonde who was 12 years old at the time. We went out for 8 years, and we've now been married for 52 years. Man. And I actually love her more today than I did 52 years ago.
Okay, well, we're going to have to ask that. What's the secret for that? We'll get to that at the end. We'll get to that. But
so you said you decided to move to Dallas. Why Dallas?
Because of DFW Airport. I decided if I'm going to move to the States, I want to be located in the middle of the country, that I could fly nonstop anywhere in the world, as well as in the States, a couple of hours to New York, a couple of hours to LA, and then nonstop anywhere in the world, because I've always built global companies. And oddly enough, the reason I came to Dallas is because of DFW Airport.
Oh, interesting. So let's backtrack. So your family, you were born and raised in South Africa, and you have siblings, or you have?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have a very small family. My dad was interned in Dachau from 1936 to 1939. He was very fortunate to get out. And I have no family to speak of other than my brother. All my father's family were exterminated during the Holocaust. My mother's families were also all murdered by the Nazis in 41 and 42. And I do have my mother's two sisters that survived. Unfortunately, they're no longer alive, but I had a very, very small family. And oddly enough, I know my grandchildren take grandparents for granted, but obviously I never had any grandparents. And not only that, as a consequence of my father being interned in Dachau, he was sick all his life and died when I was very young. So I really don't know too much about my dad. But when it comes to my mom, she lived, thank God, with me till the age of 97, and most amazing woman. I actually still go and see her every Sunday. She's in Dallas, and I still go visit her every Sunday.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
She's a special lady.
That's amazing. I didn't realize that. So child of Holocaust survivors, and you grew up, and how was the community in South Africa in terms of, is it? I heard from other South Africans, it's like conservadox, like where it's kind of like it's different than the United States, right? It's
yes and no. There's a very, very strong South African Jewish community, or there used to be a very strong South African Jewish community. Unfortunately, it's maybe 1/10 of the size that it was 30 years ago, but they're still very strong. I would say the Orthodox today are the main backbone of the South African community. There's obviously, just like there are here, there's a conservative reform. I was always in the conservative part of the congregation, which I am as well here. But it's a very strong community in South Africa, and more important, all of our kids that were born in South Africa to Holocaust survivors knew how important it was that we were Jewish and we were brought up very observant in that regard.
Wow. So, and you guys, you're how many of your children were born? They were all born there in South Africa?
All my children were born in South Africa. Sandy, who today is 50, Tracy is 48, and Gary is 46, are all in Dallas. I'm extremely fortunate to have all my children and all my grandchildren right here in Dallas, Texas.
And being at your house, it's super cool how close they are, actually.
Yeah, well, we've got our own little compound. The kids live next door, which is wonderful, and the grandkids. And that's like everything else in life. Life is what you make of it, and that didn't happen by coincidence. It took a lot of planning, and my wife said they'll never move next door, and the rest is history. They have all moved next door.
Amazing.
Just listening how, because we're going into your business life and, starting with your family, you sound you're very motivated, with everything you clearly you do. Where does that come from? Is that something you naturally have? Is something you got from your parent? Yeah.
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, I was a very bad student at school. The happiest day of my life was when I left school. I never went to college or anything like that. I went and started working at the age of 16 and worked there for a year. They promoted me, and when they promoted me, I asked them for a share in the company, and they fired me. So then I realized I was unemployable. So I started my own company at the age of 18. And I've been fortunate since then. I founded 11 companies and done financial transactions with 10 of them. I've written a book, actually, Failure's Never an Option, and failure's never been an option. You just got to believe in yourself and keep on working. And at the end of the day, I've been extremely fortunate. It's really, businesses are all about people. People don't understand that, but if you've got the right people, you've got a great business concept, you've got a good product, you can make a very successful business, and I've been very fortunate in that regard.
So you started originally in, I read about it, in the diamond business.
Yeah. When I came to the States, I was initially in the diamond business, then I was in the jewelry business, then I was in the shade business, then I was in the dental business, then I was in structure business. So
let's work backwards. What business have you not been involved in?
A lot of businesses, a lot of different businesses. But people really ask me, how can you make a success of the dental business and you have not a dentist, and you made a success out of the jewelry business, then you go into the construction business. And I've made a success out of all of them because I go into a business not understanding it the way all the people in the industry do. So I think completely out of the box. And if you look at the LA Stadium for the Rams and Chargers, a stadium like that has never been built in the history of the world and probably never will, with the way that COVID's going, and that'll change things forever. But I have a vision, like I went into the dental business because I had a bad experience getting a crown in my mouth, and I decided to digitize that industry, and that was very successful. So I don't know anything about dentistry, not too much about stadiums, but I happen to have digitized dentistry, which has affected the world, and every industry I've gone in has changed. Even if you look at the shade business, I was the first person to build a shade structure in the United States, and now every school, every park, every recreation center has shade. Every car dealership for hail has shade. So I saw a need and I came up with a product, and it turned out to be a winner. I always incubated my next business within this while I'm thinking of transitioning out. And the end of the year, I won't be involved in Gardel and Fabritech structures anymore, but I've already incubated my next business. I'm not sure I should tell everybody about it, but I'll transform that industry just like I've transformed every other industry.
Do you do this out of a need or desire because it's exciting to you? It's to make more money. You see that this is lagging. Here's a better opportunity. What's your motivation of why you end and sell and exit and start anew? Is it because you got the juices flowing, or you actually?
I'll tell you about the new business. You'll probably all be shocked when you hear this, but I've actually gone into the cannabis business, and the reason I went into it, somebody brought the opportunity to me. The son of my partner in 1968, I was in partnership with Aving Schlesinger and in the diamond business. And his son, Elian, worked for me in South Africa. Then he came over to the States. He worked for me for a while. And he came to me and said his sons, who are now 32 and 34 years old, one's an accountant, the other one's a lawyer, had gone into the cannabis industry in California and seen a huge opportunity. And he came to me and said, what do you think of this idea? And in typical Haymann style, within 5 minutes, doing no research, I said, I'm in. And now I'm in. I went on a tour. I still have never smoked marijuana. I didn't even know what it looked like or anything like that. But when I went on a tour, the first thing I met was all the producers who were absolutely amazing families, living in the hills, no tattoos, no drug addicts. Most of them didn't even really smoke their product. They've been cultivating for years and years up in the hills. And then I realized that they all are going to go out of business because the big corporations are getting involved. And in order to be legal in California, you have to have different licenses. So you have to have a license to grow, a license to store, a license to process, a separate license to distribute, and then a separate license to deliver. And most of them, the market was 100% black, but some of them, when after they'd just come in and burn down their crops and take it away, they never arrested anybody. They just came back every season, cut the crops down. They said, well, we got to go legal. And they didn't have the resources. So I saw an opportunity in the market to support them, that they could be have a future and at the same time build a business. So the business we built, and in the process of building, does everything for them. I come and I harvest the entire crop. I then bring it back to our facility. We dry it, we process it, we package it, we distribute it, and we deliver it. And each one of those are a separate license. So I managed to acquire all the licenses, and that's the next venture.
So you got into agriculture.
From the jewelry business to the sharpening business to the display business, shade business, dental business, now cannabis. No different.
You ended on a high.
Yeah.
A rabbi joke. I had to throw in a rabbi joke there.
Do you ever have thoughts of retiring, or there's such a thing as retirement in your dictionary?
Absolutely. I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Where am I going to go?
That was one of the questions I want to ask you. What's the day in the life of Basil Haymann? Like,
it's very, very structured. It's been the same for the last 52 years. I get up at about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I do a little bit of exercise, have my breakfast, and I go to work. And I'm not a sociable animal at all. In fact, if it wasn't for my wife, I'd probably be a hermit, and nobody'd know that I even exist. But she's extremely involved in the community. I know that she's on the Legacy Board, the Federation Board. She's on every Jewish board, and extremely active on all of them. But I go to work and I exercise, and I have 4 dogs. I have more time for dogs than people because dogs never let you down. And I write. I've done the Ironman several times, so I did a lot of swimming and biking and running, and now I'm only doing biking because my legs can't handle the running anymore. but I'm still riding 200 miles a week to keep out of it. And that's what I do. I work, I exercise, I'm very happy on my little compound with my kids and my grandkids and my dogs on the compound. We've got 8 dogs, so there's no shortage of dogs to meet their cousins, all of them around. Very simple lifestyle.
Hanging at the Hub will be right back. But first, here's another edition of Why Do We Do That?
There's a Jewish tradition to say the Modeh Ani prayer every single morning when you wake up. I'll say it in Hebrew and then translate it. Modeh Ani lefanacha, melech chai v'kayim, shechazarta bi nishmati b'chema rabba munasecha. Which translates as, I give thanks before you, King living and eternal, for you have returned within me my soul with compassion. Abundant is your faithfulness. Essentially, we're telling God when we wake up, thank you. Thank you for giving me another day of life. Yesterday was history, and tomorrow, what's going to be? But today, I'm living, and I'm thankful for that. You could say it in any language, however you understand, however you communicate. What's so valuable about this prayer is that many times we have doubts about ourselves. Are we worthwhile? Are we validated as human beings? This prayer is telling us, as we conclude, abundant is your faithfulness. God has faith in us. God thinks I'm great. So therefore, we have to believe in ourselves. And when you do that, it's a whole new day. It's a whole new start of the day. Anyone who wants a copy of the Modani Prayer, please reach out to office@jetexas.org. It'll be our pleasure to send you a copy, or feel free to come to the Jet Hub to pick one up.
So I want to just talk about from the business side, then I want to jump into like the Jewish side of things and ask some things. From a business side, would you, for someone starting out or someone in the middle of their career where they want to make a change, what did you find for yourself that was, I guess, either people telling you something that discouraged you, or little voices in your head or people may have, and what should they do in order to become successful?
Talk back to that voice. Like, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, well, it's
Negative.
easy. Firstly, you must dream a little bit, and you must follow your dreams, and you must believe in yourself, and failure is never an option. Every one of these businesses that I've gone into has gone through ups and downs and lost a lot of money. Every business that I've gone into, I've really jumped in with both feet, and my wife has on many occasions said, "You're absolutely nuts." But I just persist, and I believe in myself and the people around me. So you need to, and also know what your strengths and weaknesses are. You need to surround yourself with people who are good at all the things you aren't good at, and acknowledge them and empower them to do their work. Don't second guess them. So everybody can be successful if they work hard at it. Typically, I don't see the same work ethic in other generations as compared to our generation, maybe because we had absolutely nothing and our parents had nothing, and we really had to battle for everything. I think today the new generations have got too much. I look at my grandchildren and it frightens the life out of me, seeing the lifestyle that they live and how much they take for granted. And I guess when you start with nothing, you appreciate everything, and when you start with everything, I don't think you appreciate very much.
Makes sense.
Interesting challenge. So
As you're going through your like different business accomplishments and achievements, I guess even the beginning, the transition. So obviously, like you said, there's a lot of struggles. It's not easy. When are you most happy in business? Is it the deal? Is it when you start making the profit? You make a lot of money. What makes you happy with it?
Money doesn't motivate me at this stage in my life. The reason I work is that I can give more money away. That's just what I do, and it gives me a lot of nachas, and I really do believe in the philosophy, the more you give, the more you get. And that's certainly proven out to be true for me. What motivates me is helping others, building a team, building a successful business. For example, right now in the cannabis business, I'm building communities. Those communities would disappear without the support. If you go into these little towns in Northern California, like Ukiah or Hopland, all the shops are vacant. It's very sad to see what's going on. And I saw that and I met the people. So I think at the same time of building the business, I can build a community. We started about 1.5 years ago. We already employ over 70 people. I'm sure we'll have a couple of hundred people in the next year or two. And it's wonderful because I see them and I get to meet their families and give them the opportunity to be successful. Money's never motivated me. I lose in this company, I'll lose I don't know how many millions before I'll make $1 profit. But I know that the end result is what I'm interested in. Obviously being successful, but it's a journey. And I enjoy the journey, I enjoy the challenge, I enjoy a new industry. My big advantage I've never smoked or sniffed a thing. You know, I talked to the guys, I don't sniff anything. They said, no, you don't understand. You smoke it, or you eat it, or you drink it. I said, well, I'm not doing any of those three. And I look at things very, very differently. And the other thing that I like about this industry, it's got fantastic medicinal uses, and a lot of people who are in pain have come to us and written us letters of how it helps them. And it's the best thing they've ever taken and what have you. So it's not, I think, particularly with the Biden presidency, it'll become more and more legal. It's already legal in a number of states, another 6 states. New Jersey and Arizona have just voted in favor of recreational cannabis. And I think it will be like the prohibition. The whole world will go global with it, and we're building a business to sell our products globally.
How do you make a decision, like when you're not sure to do something? Do you have a mentor? Do you have someone you speak to? You go with your gut? How do you go about your decision making?
That's actually an excellent question. When I decided to digitize dentistry, 2 kids came to me at the time that were terrific software engineers, and they told me they could digitize dentistry. I listened to them for about an hour. They came over on a Sunday afternoon. And then I phoned my very good friend, Dr. Howard Freisch, a dentist, who is on the Baylor School of Dentistry as a professor. And I said, Howard, come on over. I want you to meet these kids so they can digitize dentistry. Howard came there, listened for an hour, took me aside. He said, Basil, I've got to talk to you. I said, what's wrong, Howard? He says, come talk to me. So we walked outside. He said, don't invest 1 cent in this business. You will never be able to do it. Siemens tried it. They were bought out by Sirona. Sirona tried to do it. They gave us a unit at the Baylor School that never worked properly. It wasn't accurate. Didn't meet any of the clinical specs. Don't put a penny into it. They lost over $100 million. I said, thanks for your advice. Walked back into the room. Same afternoon, said to the 2 boys, you're not going back to Minneapolis. You're staying in Dallas. We start work tomorrow. That's how much.
You know what's funny hearing you do this? Because I'm not a successful businessman or anything like that, but yet. But I feel as you're saying it, my whole life was always like, if someone told me I couldn't do something, I'm going to show you I'm going to do it. It sounds like,
but it's not. I didn't do it that way.
Not in a mean way, you know what I mean?
Like when
motivation
Elian came to me and said to me, cannabis business. I said, cannabis? Are you kidding? That's marijuana. Oh no, not for me. And he explained it to me, and I sat back and I thought, I didn't do any due diligence. I didn't do any research. I didn't check the market out. I didn't do anything. I just said, it sounds like a fantastic idea. Let's do it. So I've always worked on my instinct.
It was really, that was instinct even when you have and we know Dr. Freisch, he's my dentist. He's amazing. And he's someone who's an expert.
Yeah.
Yet you felt with your gut, this was the right move.
Right. He said, everybody's tried it. It'll never work. I said, that's good. We'll try again. So that's what we did. And I work on instinct. It's like if you meet people, I either like them or I don't. I'm terribly judgmental in that regard, but, you know, life is too short to associate with people you don't have anything in common with.
Wow. So Baz, obviously we could talk, I feel like, forever on this topic, but just kind of switching gears a little bit. So, you know, you see, right up the block over here, you have Texas Heart Institute that your family has been involved with and supported for years.
Well, that's another example. I met Rabbi Kaufman through Ivan Sachs, and he said that there was this yeshiva, and as you know, I'm not a very good Orthodox Jew. I'm a Jew, a good Jew, goes to shul at least 5 to 10 times a year. And we light candles every Friday night. The whole family in the compound get together. And Ivan told me about it, and I met Rabbi Kaufman, and they told me about starting the yeshiva in Dallas. I said, it's a good idea. Well, how much money would it take? They told me, and they started the yeshiva in Dallas. So it's the first yeshiva in Dallas. It's just like somebody came to me and said they want to build a Holocaust museum in Dallas. So I said, okay, I'm in. And I was on a building committee, and together with a number of folks that I know who've got good, serious resources, we built what I'm sure you've seen is quite a spectacular Holocaust museum. Obviously, that's very close to my heart.
Sure.
And very important to me.
So what about philanthropy and giving back? Let's say for the Jewish community for now. What motivates you and Dot to want to be involved and to give?
Well, to me, it's very important that the next generation understand. And that's why I got involved in the yeshiva, because I believe those kids, when they grow up, will have children. More than most kids will have children from the yeshiva, from the Orthodox end. My brother's son's got 12 kids, so he's got 28 grandchildren from 3. So I've got 7 from 3. So the statistics are a little.
You're looking
different.
at the numbers.
But it's obviously very important to me that the next generation, that we never forget what happened in the Holocaust. That's why I got involved in the Holocaust Museum. And unfortunately, so much assimilation today, where the kids are just have no regard for the Yiddishkeit anymore. And that's why all my kids are involved. Gary is very involved in Momentum, what is it called?
Yeah, Momentum.
Momentum. Julie is involved with the Federation as well as other things. Sandy's the president of the Jewish School, Levine. We're all involved in the community. I think it's a way of not only giving back, but trying to ensure that the next generation take over. And quite frankly, that's our biggest concern, to make sure that the next generation take over, because my generation is past its due date and needs to go into hibernation.
So, because I wanted to ask you, because what you just mentioned, I think, is a concern from a lot of people we speak with. And we see, doing Jewish outreach for young families, that people are less and less connected to synagogues or temples, whatever it is. And Pew studies are showing that. And that's what we do, try to connect people through different ways. You've obviously found success through seeing your children, how they're involved. What do you attribute? Because not everyone gets that lucky to see their children be as involved as you guys were, and you wish that, but they're actually doing it. What do you attribute? Maybe why? And we don't know for sure ever, but why do you think they were involved? That they got involved?
Well, you used the word luck. Why you got so lucky? I think the harder I work, the luckier I get. So I think luck is very important. The most important luck you have to have is good health, because without your good health, you've got absolutely nothing. But you don't have to be lucky. We set an example which the kids follow, and hopefully their kids will see from their parents' example. And it's not going to be a smooth road. There's just a crazy world we live in, and who knows where everybody will end up. But it's an example that you set for your kids, and you can only hope and pray that your grandchildren get the same example from their parents, and it carries on. There are no guarantees in anything in life, and I wouldn't always rely on luck. I think you're lucky if you're healthy, but you've got to have a vision and you've got to believe in it.
Sure. So let me ask you also this, now that I'm thinking about it. So seeing the landscape of Judaism now and the fact that the next generation is more disconnected, and what do you think can be done by your generation, our generation, and what could we do to try to, redirect the trajectory right now and make it successful where we grow the Jewish people?
I think what you're doing is one of the very important things that needs to be done. I think that momentum is reaching out, and I can see from their trips to Israel and from taking young adults on these trips that had never been bar mitzvahed but were Jewish, and bar mitzvahing them at the kotel and things like that. That's very, very powerful stuff. That's the heartbeat of getting the next generation involved. I mean, where you're taking these unobservant Jews and not discriminating. The one thing that really concerns me is when I see the Orthodox and the Conservative and the Reform all competing with each other for members and taking away, and a Chabad house opens here and the next Chabad opens next door. It's really, I tried to bring all the rabbis together, but I failed miserably because each one's very protective of their own group. I think we're so few Jews, we got to stick together. It doesn't matter if you're Orthodox or you're Reform or you're Conservative, it really doesn't matter. We're all Jews. And that is very frustrating to see. But we need to understand who we are and how fractured we are and what's going on in the community with the assimilation. The numbers are staggering with the amount of Jews that are getting assimilated. And I don't know what will happen in my particular case. My grandchildren will all marry Jewish kids. I think the odds of that happening are rather remote, just from what I'm seeing going through their house and friends and what have you.
Does that make you nervous?
It doesn't make me nervous. I won't be here much longer. So it's, everybody's got to make their own life and their own choices in life. And I can't expect anybody to understand what it took me to get where I am today. That's why I wrote a book for my family primarily, that they understood that nothing happened by itself. And hopefully they'll appreciate it. And I actually wrote it for next generation and generations that aren't even thought of right now. Hopefully they'll understand the traditions that they come from and what it took to do what we've managed to do.
Absolutely. And I was saying that people ask us, their children are in public school and they say, Rabbi, all the kids are celebrating Christmas, and, how do I convince them that don't do that, and we shouldn't, and I guess kind of focus why it's not so fun. I said, don't worry about anyone else. If you make Hanukkah the best time ever, and you make like you mentioned on the compound, you light Shabbat candles, and that's meaningful, and then you have memories of your parents and your grandparents that made you happy, made you feel good, to give them positive experiences, that will make them want to continue it and do that with their families, instead of trying to, like you were saying, hope. No, it's not lucky that your children and grandchildren are connected and staying involved. Let's focus on what we could do now to give them those positive feelings and experiences, so that they're not only that they're going to want it, they're going to seek it, and they're going to try to continue it.
If I could quote Warren Buffett, someone's sitting under a shade today because someone a long time ago planted a tree.
That's right.
I think it's such a great line.
Yeah,
someone's sitting under
a tree.
It's what we're doing today. So our grandchildren, our great-great-grandchildren.
Right.
And you can also build the shade also. Right. And if you don't have the shade, you can
absolutely.
Part of your.
Well, okay, I don't want to keep Basil too long.
I want to ask you a question before we end. Anytime we ask our guests, what's a favorite mitzvah? If you could pick any, there's many mitzvahs out there, and I'm kind of just throwing it out, off the cuff. But what's a favorite mitzvah? If you have one mitzvah.
I think my favorite mitzvah, it might sound morbid to you, but I believe that when somebody passes away, to go to their house and console them is probably the most important thing that I believe that. My mother always taught me that behavior doesn't cost anything. And I think to behave in the right way is very, very important. And too many people don't know how to behave, and it doesn't cost anything to do the right thing. So I don't really have a favorite mitzvah, but I think behavior doesn't cost anything. And there's too many people in this day and age that really don't know how to behave, and there's so many people that life is all about them. They're not interested in anybody else. They live in their little circle, and they really don't know what they're missing by not being involved more in the community. And I really have to thank my wife for that, because she's got me involved, and I've met the most wonderful, wonderful people through her being so involved in the community. And I would say 95% of our friends today are friends, unfortunately none of them are South African, who are very involved in the community. And those are the backbone of our friends today. And these are people that are not only very philanthropic, but they work, they contribute, they honor committees. And I believe even if you can't donate a penny, if you can work, that's a bigger contribution than the money in many cases. So I don't think in order to be involved, you need to be able to make donations. If you're prepared to sacrifice some of your time, that to me is worth more than the money. And fortunately today, I've got a circle of friends that don't only put the money where their mouth is, but actually are working on all these causes that they feel so strongly about.
Yeah, well, and then that is a mitzvah. You know, like you were saying, consoling a mourner. That's a mitzvah.
Yeah.
But I like that. It's good advice. That behavior doesn't cost anything.
No, it doesn't cost anything.
That's a good line.
But you'd be amazed how many people are only interested in themselves. If they were to look at themselves in the mirror and say, "What have you done for anybody else?" Nothing. It's unbelievable.
They say
it's in a little world, and it's all about them. They could be very successful in business. They could do all these things, but it's all about them. It's very sad. They would only realize that if it wasn't about them, how much more fulfilling life would be, how much more rewarding it would be.
Say it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice.
Important is not important. I think being a mensch is more important than importance.
And I think for our listeners to be able to hear from you.
Who are your listeners?
Everyone. We're global. We're like you. We're global businesses. We don't do it's only.
I've never heard your podcast.
Not yet. You haven't. Now you'll listen to this one, and no, this is our fifth one, so we're getting started.
That's why we're planted in Dallas, because like the DFW, we're like the hub.
Right.
We're central.
We need to be.
We got to be
central.
all over. So.
But I think those listening and new listeners, old listeners, to be able to hear someone like you who's been successful and involved in Judaism, really the overarching message I'm hearing is that stuff is giving back, whether it's through your businesses or through your philanthropy or your family, seems to be much more important to you than anything else. Success more than the success, which is
much more important,
powerful,
and it makes you happier. Which ultimately, all wanted to be happy. You're saying that's what gives you real joy.
You know what, at the end of the day, you have to look at yourself every day in the mirror and be happy with the way that you've behaved. And quite frankly, I don't give a continental what anybody thinks about me. I'm happy with the way I behave. And trust me, there are many, many people that don't like Basil Haymann for whatever reason, Gegenzunt, hate, whatever. I just know that I am who I am. And quite frankly, if you don't behave correctly, more than likely, I'm going to tell you that, and you're not going to take it in too good and not like me forever after. But that's me. I'm brutally honest.
Well, there's a real. The Judaism says that Jewish wisdom speaks about the idea of who's rich. How do you define wealth? Ezehu asher hasamech b'chalko, one who's happy with what he has. He's content with himself, how he acts. Assuming he's acting well, properly, and he's doing what's right. He doesn't worry about other people. He's not thinking about other people. What this person has, I'm happy with who I am and everything that I have.
I behave. That's
That's true wealth. It's
true. I'm not running a popularity contest, and if I were, I'd lose it miserably, because if I don't like you, I tell them, and that doesn't go down too well.
Yeah, but Dot's always there to help you.
Yeah,
Dot's
Dot's a superstar.
She's the-
If it wasn't for her, I'd be a recluse. I'd just go to work and play with my dogs and ride my bicycle. Wouldn't go out anywhere at any time. But I've got to deal with her every Friday night. We have the kids for Shabbat, or we go to their house. Every Saturday and Sunday night, I go wherever she wants to go. The rest of the week, leave me at home. Very simple arrangement, and it works extremely well. But then again, you've got to be very blessed. Without this woman, I wouldn't be anybody, because she's an angel sent from heaven as far as I'm concerned. She's an amazing lady.
Yeah, and this goes back to what you were saying before. That you said that your love for her now is greater than it was originally. You could hear it, you could feel it.
No, but she is. I wouldn't be where I am. I mean, I every day she amazes me with things that she does for people that she hardly ever knows. And God forbid she hears about something, she's onto it and does something about it. During this COVID crisis, she spent every night on the phone to all these old people that she's never met, just talking to them and finding out how they're doing, all because they're all isolated. I mean, it's amazing, just quite amazing.
It's continue doing what you're doing. Keep on being a role model to all of us, and I should continue strength and keep on doing what you're doing.
You just got to be blessed. That's all, with good health. Then we can do whatever we can do.
Amen.
Well, this has been interesting, and I love your setup.
Thank you.
Very nice. I'll compliment Michael when I see him.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much. Take care, everyone.
Thank you. Keep it real. Keep
Thanks.
it happy.
And now, a Jewish perspective.
Hey everyone, there's a beautiful message from this week's Torah portion that I think is so important in how we view our relationships with other people. It says that when Jacob was looking for a wife and he finally found Rachel, and he sees her and he wants to get married to her, he goes to her father Lavan and says, I want to marry your daughter. And Lavan says, sure, you just need to work for me for 7 full years. And the pasuk, the scripture says that the years that Jacob worked for her felt like a matter of days. It flew by. Why? Because through his love for her, ahava, that his love for her. So the question's asked, what do you mean? If I love her if you love something so much, then you want it right away. You don't want to wait for it. It shouldn't make things go faster. If anything, it should prolong that which you want. How does that work? And the answer is that our definition of love has been perverse in today's society. We understand love as something that we desire, something that satisfies our needs. For example, when we go to a steakhouse or some restaurant, you say, give me your best fish that you have. And they bring out a delicious sea bass, and right away you start eating it. So 1 second. You love this? Do you really love this sea bass? Really, you should really have an aquarium. You should look at the animals. You should look at the fish. You shouldn't be eating it. So the answer is we're translating love as my desire for this particular food. And the reality is that's not what love is. Love, if you look at the root of the word ahava, which is love in Hebrew, is hav, which means to give. The Torah is teaching us, God is teaching us that what generates and perpetuates and concretizes real true love is the concept of giving. Same way we have a piece of God within us, the godly part in God is the makeup is giving. So inside our nature of our nature that we have in us to give, and then when we actualize that through the giving process, that generates true love. Not from taking and receiving, what are you giving to me? But when we give, that creates a bond. Similarly, when you have a brand new baby, the baby doesn't give us anything. Our wives have to really go through 9 months of really hard times and labor, and then baby's just crying in the middle of the night, wants to eat, and all you're doing is giving. But yet somehow there's a very strong, powerful connection and love towards this child. The answer is because we're giving. Giving breeds love, and I think it's so important to understand this. And going back to what Jacob says, yeah, of course I love her. And therefore you would think, oh, you love it, so you want it right away. But no, he realized that giving is the foundation of marriage. And he was excited to eventually give as much as he can to Rachel. So the process of giving over 7 years, of giving in service, of eventually being able to acquire Rachel as part of the union as his wife, it was very easy for him because it was the love, it was the giving process that he was nurturing for future beautiful marriage with Rachel. And this is so important to us when we have our spouses. What we should be thinking of is, how could we give? Giving is what's going to create love. Not what are you doing? What have I done? I'm watching the kids, you're watching the kids. You know, I'm doing all this hard work, you're doing that, you don't help out. When we're looking at the other person of what they're giving to us, that's the antithesis of what love is. Expecting something that's coming to us rather than saying, what could I do to give? And of course, that will, first of all, the obvious answer is if we give to someone, they're going to probably want to reciprocate. But we shouldn't focus on that. We should be focusing on giving because it'll make us feel better and love that person even more. I wish everyone Shabbat Shalom. Take care.
Subscribe to Hanging at the Hub on your favorite podcast platform. Follow us at jet.jewisheducationtexas on Instagram and at Jewish Education Texas on Facebook. Or watch the show at jetexas.org.